Pike County Fiscal Court called to order, and have a roll call with members, please, by the clerk.
Judge Rutherford.
Present.
Magistrate Anderson.
Here.
Magistrate Johnson. Magistrate Murphy. Magistrate Robinson. Magistrate Dotson.
Here.
Magistrate Harris.
Here.
We'll now have Pledge of Allegiance led by Magistrate Murphy. We need approval of the minutes of the meeting of February the 7th, 2012. I have reviewed those minutes, and Jeannie has reviewed those minutes. You have a copy in your package. Are there any questions in regard to it or any corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion. Motion from Magistrate Murphy. Have a second from Magistrate Robinson. Have a roll call vote, please.
Magistrate Anderson.
Yes.
Magistrate Johnson. Magistrate Murphy. Magistrate Robinson. Magistrate Dotson.
Yes.
Magistrate Harris.
Yes.
Judge Rutherford.
Yes. Motion carried. We were going to honor Coach Haywood today. Last meeting he was sick, and he had a meeting in Lexington that was put off, and he called as one he had to go to. So we know that he wants to come, as he told Brandon, and so we will be ready at the next meeting to recognize one of the leading coach in football in the Commonwealth of Kentucky as far as winning records go. And I look forward to that, and I'm sure that Magistrate Harris, and I'm sure that Brandon and others that has that connection with that program over there, I'll be glad that we'll be able to do that in the future. I want to bring to your attention, and I read in the paper this morning, a fellow that I've known who had contributed so much to Eastern Kentucky, and it's Mike Mullins. Mike Mullins passed away. I think he was 61 years old. He was a leader in Eastern Kentucky in our culture and artistic advocate for Eastern Kentucky. He helped the writers of Eastern Kentucky and held a forum for them every year. More people that played the traditional mountain music. He always had the workshop over at Knott County and the Appalachian workshop for them. He done more for the writers than anybody else in Eastern Kentucky. He gave them confidence in the ability that they had. And as far as poets are concerned, he caused thousands of poems to be. So, and let me say this for Mike. He was dead on these two issues. He didn't let other issues become involved. He let somebody else take care of the other issues, like environment or anything like that. But he certainly will be missed here in Eastern Kentucky, and he's just a great loss, and I've known him for many, many, many years. So I'll ask for just a moment of silence for Mike Mullins, who is the head of the Hindman Settlement School in Knott County. That's what Mr. Mullins did for a living. That school almost went under, and he saved it. And he's a fellow that had down-to-the-earth approach to the quality of life for the people of Eastern Kentucky. And he understood how talented that talent that was here, and how he nurtured that talent, and in regard to the musicians, the poets, the writers, and as I said, didn't get off on other issues. He just stuck to those issues, and that made our quality of life a lot better here in Eastern Kentucky. So I'll ask for just a moment of silence, please. Thank you. First thing we have on the agenda today is the adoption of a resolution of approving to join a lawsuit against the Mortgage Electronic Restoration System Incorporated. And let me say, this is not real complicated. We know Wall Street. We know the problems they've caused in the world. And this started on Wall Street when the big banks, lending institutions, started passing on or selling mortgage after mortgage after mortgage after mortgage. Matter of fact, there was four mortgages that they passed on in Kentucky. 2 weeks ago, they settled the lawsuit. The Attorney General for the Commonwealth settled a lawsuit for $26 million. And that was the state's part of the lawsuit. During that news conference, he noted that Kentucky had a statute that said that every mortgage had to be filed in the county court clerk's office in the county. When the attorneys who's bringing this lawsuit checked, Pike County was one of the counties that would get back the most money, near $500,000 to the clerk, to the Pike County clerk. So they're in process of filing a lawsuit, what's called a class action lawsuit, type lawsuit, which includes all the clerks in Kentucky. Pike County, due to its bonding of the jail and due to its bonding of Phase 5 of our landfill, then of course we end up getting as much or more money than any county. So certainly we would want to be a part of this lawsuit. County attorney from Floyd County and our county attorney, Mr. Hall, they met with me, with the attorneys, the law firm of out of Paintsville, and we met with them. Mr. Case, the assistant county attorney, became involved. He was out of town when he got back. But what happened, it goes to the state, and then it came down to the counties. Actually, it started on Wall Street, as you know, that caused this world to go into an economic dive worldwide. And it's where they kept passing and selling and passing and selling the mortgages. So now it's down to the county level in Kentucky. And what the law firm, and I think Jeannie said they was taking 25%. And Chris, I thought that, and Judge Hayes and Mr. Case, I thought that was pretty reasonable. Usually they charge, if I'm right, 33%, isn't it, or something like that on this type of suit. But Jeannie told me it was 25%. So I thought that was pretty reasonable in regard to this lawsuit. They feel confident in their conversations with the Attorney General in regard to the settlement of the states that they can, after they get in, it will go to a federal court, that they will start mediation and they can settle that suit. They did settle the one with the state for $26 million. Are there any questions any of the magistrates got, or something that Mr. Case, I'll call on the county attorney for anything that he has to say in regard to this issue. Mr. County Attorney.
Judge, I have reviewed the material. I don't see any downside to it in the sense that it is a contingency fee. They will front the expenses, and it's a 25%. I think a class action is the way to go, because I think it would be difficult for each individual county to set off this suit. In my opinion, if it's not filed in federal court to begin with, will be removed to federal court, and I think it would be easier for all the counties, or as many counties as possible, to join together in the class action. I know some of the attorneys involved, and they are competent attorneys, so I would recommend that the court undertake this. I don't see any particular downside to it in the sense that we're not out any money. I have some concerns from a legal standpoint on whether or not we will ultimately be successful, probably more so than the attorneys involved do, but that's just, all attorneys don't always agree, but I don't see any downside to it. And I would recommend that the court adopt a resolution and that we enter into the agreement, and if they aren't successful, then that will be wonderful, and if they're not successful, we're not out anything.
Okay, any other questions, any other statement? If not, do I have a motion to authorize them to make Pike County Fiscal Court and the Pike County Clerk a part of the suit? Have a motion, have a second, have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson? Yes. Mr. Murphy? Mr. Robinson? Mr. Dotson?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Judge Rutherford?
Yes. Some time ago, Bobby Branham and myself and Hatch went up to a church under construction on Caney Creek. Probably, I think Bobby and Hatch agree with me, it's the largest church under construction by square footage in Pike County. It's a very large church, Free Will Baptist. And when we got there, they took us in and showed us it was under construction. And they had installed all the wiring inside the church. The walls hadn't been put on and it was open. And the weekend before we was up there, the copper thieves came in and they stole every bit of their wiring, copper wiring, out of that building. That led to a letter to Senator Jones asking that this comprehensive plan that the legislature, House and Senate, is trying to bring together in Kentucky in regard to use of drugs and to the copper thieves. Copper, we had asked that they put in that comprehensive plan, and we had proposed 10 years and a $10,000 fine. Now, that was done, and I talked to Doug Tackett before that, and that's not only to that issue, but if these copper thieves put 911 off the air, you don't have any ambulance service, you don't have any fire service, you don't have any police service, and your hospital will not operate. So after my conversation with Doug, we got in touch with our legislators, and hopefully we'll make that part of this comprehensive bill that they have in the legislature, that they hope to work together and bring together and pass one bill. You've got several bills filed in the House and several in the Senate. So hopefully that will be done. But then you look that we have a junkyard ordinance in Pike County that this fiscal court, which passed and went on record that we was not going to tolerate the junkyards of buying this stolen copper. We have today to offer an amendment that we have, and that puts the junkyard people on notice. If they buy stolen copper, and the county attorney will read the amendment to our ordinance, and I think this will put this court on record that we're not going to tolerate this in Pike County, and that is a message to these copper thieves who think copper today in Pike County, and I'm talking about the drug people who's trying to get a fix. They think that copper is more precious than gold, and they've been stealing it all over this county. We've had death after death in the region. I know Hillman, in your area during the Christmas holidays, Gerhardt Communications called me at home and said that these copper thieves went to the head end of their cable system and they unhooked it at one end and they knew where the other end was, and you all are aware they try to not cut the cable because it weakens the signal, and so they have very long cables. And they started rolling it up, and they rolled it from one end and rolled it till finally they looked down at it. It wasn't even copper. But here it was at Christmas time, UK basketball tournament coming up, and no television in Peter Creek, and the employees of Gerhardt Communications, which Intermountain Cable, home with their families, and it cold, 17 degrees. That's what he told me it was when they called them out, and they had to go back and put the cable up. That's just an example of what these thieves have been doing in this county. We're worried about our 911 system. I've talked to the sheriff. I've talked to Doug in regard to the system, and we just feel that this is an opportunity for us to strengthen our junkyard ordinance, as we called it, and to add something to it. Mr. County Attorney.
Judge, this is a first reading of an ordinance of the Fiscal Court of Pike County, Kentucky, amending the Pike County Junkyard Ordinance number 12.02.08.007 to add the prohibition of the purchase of stolen copper and setting a penalty for same. Whereas the theft and resale of copper is a growing problem in both Pike County and the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and whereas the Fiscal Court desires to strictly prohibit the purchase of reasonably recognized stolen copper, now therefore it be ordained by the Fiscal Court of Pike County of the Commonwealth of Kentucky that Section .11, Purchase is Prohibited, be amended to add the following paragraph, and Section .99 is amended to provide for the penalty for violating Section .11. Section .11, Purchase is Prohibited. Sub B, no junk dealer or licensee may purchase any copper wire that is reasonably recognized as stolen, or copper that has been scorched, or any copper wire that has been smelted. Section .99, Penalties. Sub C, whoever violates Section .11 is guilty of a Class A misdemeanor and shall be fined not more than $500 and or jail for not more than 1 year. This will be a first reading. As a housekeeping matter, Madam Clerk, Section 99 penalties also needs to be underlined when you publish it in the newspaper, because it is an addition or a change to an existing ordinance. And for the court's information, the penalty of $500 and or jail up to 1 year is the maximum Class A misdemeanor penalty and the most that this court can adopt.
Judge, I think also the dealer needs to be included in this, in the ordinance. If we're going to prosecute the people that's stealing it, then the dealer's not no better, because a lot of them know it's stolen and they buy it. And if we can amend the motion to where we can include the people that's buying it.
That's what this
okay.
is. It does that.
Okay, now what's the man that's going to steal it? Are we going to give him a little more time? Okay.
Magistrate Dotson is right, and he's right on the point. And that is the purpose of this amendment today, as Magistrate Dotson has elated to. That is the purpose of this, is to go to the person who's buying it, and that is that dealer out there. So he's correct to make that statement.
Thank you, Judge, and I'd like to make a motion that we amend our ordinance to include
the
this.
Next meeting, this was the first reading, Mr. County Attorney. Next is something, and let me say this, our treasurer couldn't be here today. As you all are aware, her son had an accident and lost his finger and had to have it reattached. And today was the day that they said, bring him down, that we need to take the stitches out. I asked the budget office, the treasurer, and the finance director some time ago, probably a month and a half or 2 months ago, that this process was started. I said, don't let this court get way down the road in regard to our budget without updating us to the current status of our budget and what the outlook is for the rest of this fiscal year and the next fiscal year. Because we as a court have the responsibility to govern this county, and I have the responsibility as county judge executive to keep the budget in balance. I took several actions because we had a very tight budget this year, and all the commissioners and directors are at the table today, and they have been involved in this. It is if we had cut off, it was their employees that they had to assign other people to do other people's work, and due to attrition and people that got hurt and didn't come back, we didn't have to cut as many off as we thought we was going to have to cut off. But these fellows who have the responsibility to really run county government on behalf of this court, they're sitting at the table today. All of them have had input. I stayed out of it. I'm a member of this court. I think that we certainly, I'll have some questions. I'm going to take some notes as they make their presentation today. As the presentation is made, the treasurer will be available for any questions that we'll have upon her return. The finance director will start out, and the flow of the meeting will be handled by the finance director. And they furnished me with a copy of an agenda that they have today. And as we said here, I will, as I said, I'm going to take notes, and I'm going to have some questions. And after it's over with, after you give your presentation. And I'll have questions after we adjourn today, and probably each department, each commissioner. I've stated that no money can be expended by the county without more than $5,000 without the county judge executive's approval, because it's my duty to keep this in balance, and it is the state constitution, state statute, that we have to be in balance. The state of Kentucky, states, counties, and cities in this country has to have a balanced budget. The government of Morriston don't. They have a printing press, so they don't have to have a balanced budget. We do, but I don't want us to get down the road and me coming up here and saying you didn't let me know, or you didn't let this court know what our status was in regard to the budget. So I'm anxious. As I said, I want to take notes. As soon as your presentation is through, I'm sure I'll have questions, and I'm sure the magistrates will have questions. And you all have had adequate time to prepare and to get your numbers down. And I think from what I understand, we're going to have a real thorough, as soon as this presentation is made, it gets to the end of it, the county attorney is only going to give some options under the Kentucky Constitution and on the law of how revenue could be raised. And that will be only options for this court to consider. So he will do that. I think he has. I heard him say this yesterday, that there are two options that he'll tell the court about, and that's the only options that I know about, and he will tell you that under the Kentucky statute. So we'll now ask our finance director and make sure that all of your microphones are on. Make sure you move the microphone so that you can be heard, and that you share the microphones with others as they make their presentation. And the first will be our finance director who will open this.
Okay. As the court is well aware, we know that budget season is up on us. It won't be long. We'll be starting to present numbers to the court for their approval and discussion. Start out, we just wanted to let you see where the budget currently was, the budget that we're working with right now. We're at $37,674,580. In order to get to that budget, as you will remember, and I'm sure you're well aware of, we had to make a lot of cuts to get there. We cut several different areas. That included salaries, insurance, operating expenses. There were just renewals and repairs, office supplies, and travel cuts.
Rhonda, pull your microphone up just a little bit closer to you, please.
Okay. We'll do some detail here right now with Judge Hayes on the personnel savings that we've had.
Thank you, Rhonda. I'll be very quick. The court has really heard what I have to say here. You have in your packet a detailed breakdown of what you see on the screen before you, the personnel savings for the calendar year 2011. Now, notice that's not from the beginning of the fiscal year in the mid part of the year, so that's 12 whole months. we anticipated a budget shortfall and started leaving positions open when the openings occurred through natural attrition, where we possibly could leave positions open. You've heard it said many times that in order to save significant dollars in personnel, you have to go to those people who are making significant dollars. And so that's what we think we've done. The last calendar year, you see that the breakdown is there before you. Rate of pay, 676, 115.62. Health insurance, 206,824.80. Life insurance savings, 1,248. And the retirement contribution of Pike County for the employees who are no longer with us, we saved $124,672.80. So the grand total there is in red. That's $1,008,861.22. Really, the good news and bad news at once, as we say, is that this court only had to, when it prepared its budget last fiscal year, only had to lay off 9 employees. We laid off 10, then found out we'd made a mistake and had to bring 1 back, and so we only had a total of 9. That's the good news. We didn't have any more than that. But the bad news is these were 9 individuals who all are people and who have problems themselves and who have families, and that's tough for this court to do. It's tough for any of us to engage in that process. But we've cut substantially in all departments. We've cut to the point, for example, in solid waste, Commissioner Lyons' office, to get out our coupon books this year. We had to have people come from all over this courthouse, from finance out of the 4th floor, from Frankie's office, the purchasing office. We utilized our people. From the judge's office, we utilized our people. We simply couldn't have got the work done, I believe you'll agree, Commissioner Lyons, without those people volunteering to help. And we've had that kind of can-do help attitude ever since we got into this shortfall situation. I will tell the court, though, as I mix around with our personnel, mainly here at the courthouse, but I interact with our employees across the board. While they've been great employees, and they've been willing to work that much harder as we've had that many fewer people. Many of them are really very much concerned about the future, and I'm hopeful that will not severely affect morale. Many of them mentioned to me almost on a daily basis, I hope we won't have to have a health care cut again. I hope there won't be any more layoffs. Some of them are concerned about that. So there's a lot of concern in our workforce, but I think we really should be thankful that we have such a great workforce, Judge. That's pretty much what I have to say about personnel. I think we cut almost to the bone, but there are a few places we can look at, but not to save significant dollars. There's a few positions more that we can look at, but depending on what our situation is at the start of the year, we're going to have to look awful hard at that. Thank you.
Next, you'll see on the screen the cuts from the current budget. This is just really a review of some of the cuts that we took, actually all of the cuts that we took in order to get in balance. About $2.8 million is what we had to cut. You'll see the top was the salary adjustments. That was included in Judge Hayes' $1 million. There were additional employees that they were able to not fill positions, as he said. But those were the actual number that we had to use in this budget. And going down through there, you'll see the $800,000 on the insurance reduction. And as Judge Hayes says, we hope we don't have to cut insurance any further, but given the fact that insurance rates generally do increase, that I don't know how that's going to affect it in order to get back into a new budget. Also taking note of the $600,000 of the road fund reduction. The reason we were able to do that is because we had coal severance money in the budget, That made up for the difference to maintain the same level that you had in the prior budget. We don't know that we will have that again because coal severance money has not been divvied out for the next 2 years. So keep that in mind, in that if we don't have that level of funding, your road funds will not be able to come back in the next budget if things stay the way they are. And just kind of going down through there, the miscellaneous other cuts that we had to take. The next slide that we have up is on the coal and mineral taxes. Fortunately, we did budget, and we have stayed within that budget for the revenues. We are where we need to be, but we have no excess. If we are able to, on the top slide you'll see I did an estimate just taking what the fourth quarter was for the year before and plugging that in. If we are able to get that amount of money, we'll come out of this budget at where we should be, which is good. However, it's no excess revenue. It's just where the budget is. The next slide you'll see is the debt service needs. Keep in mind that the landfill was actually funded through coal severance through this current budget. Next year, we don't have coal severance money. I think the court has asked for debt service money, but if we don't receive that debt service money, we will have to put the, as you'll see in the bottom, the total funding needed for debt service for fiscal year 2013 will be right at $1.2 million. The next year, once the new judicial building is in place, we'll need $1.4 million because the AOC actually contributes $239,000 towards our Hall of Justice debt service. In addition to that, about $200,000 more the AOC contributes to the operating expenses for that building. So you're going to need $1.4 million for debt service plus an additional couple $100,000 for operating expenses that the AOC kind of they give us for the operation of that building.
How long is the Hall of Justice debt? How many more years do we have to pay on that?
I brought that. Wait just a second. 2018. Mm-hmm.
It's 100 or
You'll see
396,000 a year. Is that the jail debt? 396,000 a year.
yes,
Plus the
plus the
Hall of
239.
Justice
Yes,
is 179.
yes, yes.
179 for this year, but it's 239 annually.
No, 239 in addition because the AOC actually contributes 239,000 in addition to the 179.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Next up, we have a county vehicle and equipment report from Bobby Branham.
Well, Jeff Justice and I over at the garage, we went over and looked at a few of these vehicles, or several of our vehicles, and everybody kind of knows that what kind of condition some of our vehicles are in. Our guys are actually trying to get out and work in, and we've replaced a bunch of public works vehicles, of vans, and they're in good shape. But by and large, the solid waste and some of these, like our tool truck here, that the guys have to go out on the road and try to fix something that's broken down up in one of these hollows. This boom truck and some of our tool trucks and things are actually pretty darn rough, to say the least, on them. And you've got a listing there in your all's packets that shows all the vehicles, what model they are, what mileage is on them, and the road foreman or the solid waste foreman in that district kind of gave his idea on what kind of condition they are. And you'll see quite a few are poor, bad, and junk. Jeff, and that list is about 3 months old. That was probably November, I think, when we compiled the mileage and the condition of them. And so some of them have more mileage on them, and there may be a few more with that poor or junk rating by
Even
now.
with the mileage on some of them, where they sit and run with the hydraulics, you could almost double what the engine actually has on it. Because it's not moving, but they're sitting there running the hydraulics, compacting the trash.
We just have and we've got some estimates from some of the foremen on. I think they're going to actually go into some of those figures on what they're to bring their fleet up to par and what they think they could really operate with.
Okay. Next will be Mike Lyons, Solid Waste.
Well, I'll touch on the amount that he just mentioned that'll bring my fleet up to par, and that'd be 1.4 million right now.
Is that, go ahead.
Some of the packers have in excess of 400,000 miles. We've got 11 packers in the fleet. We run 10 every day, with one being a backup, and Jeff can attest to one being in the shop, at least one being in the shop all the time. There's several that was broke down this morning that he was able to put back on the road to where the guys could get their day started. And those cost $160,000 each. They're not cheap by no means. Anything with the solid waste department, there's nothing cheap. We put approximately 31,000 miles a year on our packer trucks. And now those are hard miles because what Jeff was saying. They'll be sitting in the middle of the road with their RPMs raised up to where they can run the blade and compact the garbage. So it's very hard on the engines. The mini trucks, the small trucks that we have, we've got an 02 model that we run day in and day out. Excuse me. It's got 178,000 miles on it. And it's still going through that same process, having to rev the RPMs up to compact the garbage. Most recently, we bought some 09 mini packers. We bought 5 of them. They've already got 50,000 miles on them. The supervisors pick up trucks that they run and pick up the white goods with, the washers and dryers and so forth that the other trucks can't haul. They've already gotten 95,000 miles on average for all the mini packers, all the pickup trucks, because they're running at 30,000 miles a year. You all know what we go through, and we're at a point now where we haven't bought any trucks since we ordered them in 08 and received them the latter part of 08, I think, first part of 09, and we haven't been able to get anything since. On the transfer trucks, you're helping me out with the transfer trucks. We have 5 in the fleet. We're leasing with that lease package like you guys are doing on your dump trucks. We're getting 2 of them every year, which is a tremendous help. But unfortunately, those other 3 just keep getting older and older and older. There's 2 99 models and an 03 model that on average is about 30,000 miles a year that we can add to those trucks every year. And I just don't know how long Jeff can keep patching this stuff up. He can maybe attest to that. The trucks nowadays, I don't think are as tough as what the older ones used to be. Those other ones, you just keep running into the ground. But now the new ones, I don't think last or durable.
The beds are just about deteriorated where there's nothing to weld to or patch back. Even the dump trucks, the garbage is something similar to the salt, the way it eats the metal. And you've seen a lot of the salt trucks, how they're eat up. There's nothing left. Same way with the garbage trucks.
We had a dirt truck, had an old dirt truck on the landfill, for instance, that we had a problem with. The bed collapsed on it and broke the frame in two, and we got a little insurance money. I think it's $13,000 worth of insurance money. We were able to search around with that money because that's the only money we had. I understand that. We all understood that. We were able to purchase a truck that's, so far, it's holding up. Jeff's been able to help us out on it, but it's got almost 700,000 miles on it. We don't know how much longer it's going to hold together. The water truck was leaking when we picked up the material. I shouldn't be saying this, but anyway, it was, and we had a problem with the welding issue on it because it's also got gas inside the tank. So we had to take it outside to an experienced machinist that could weld on it for us. Our boom truck, if we have another flood or another disaster, I just don't know if it'll hold up because it's really bad shape. But yeah, I'm sure you all are aware of it. But it's about 1.4 million, and that would be a water truck, a boom truck, 4 large packers, and 4 of the small mini packers.
I don't see how these trucks might extend what they do. These hollers, you got all these hillsides, you have to go up in people's yards and stuff. I don't see how you can keep springs and stuff on them. I mean, I've seen them work.
Jeff does a good job. He's replaced every part on a lot of these trucks. Well, he does a good job with it.
Mr. Lyons, Mr. McNamee could not be here today. Can you give us on his equipment need for the landfill?
Well, now, most recently, we just purchased, with your all's approval, a new engine for our Aljon compactor. Normally, those machines last 5 years. We're on our 7th year with that one, and our 3rd motor. You just purchased a dozer and an excavator not long ago. They're holding up good. The dirt truck is for the landfill. I mean, we have to have a dirt truck. We have to cover up the garbage. We don't have a choice. It has to be done. And that's the one that we've got 700,000 miles on.
How many miles is it?
Pardon me?
How many miles did you say you had?
700,000. So,
Mike, since you mentioned that new engine you put in that compactor, what did we ever do with the old engine? We never did get a report back. Did we keep the engine and
No, the
we
engine
let them have it?
The block was cracked. It wouldn't be feasible to core. No.
Another question I've got, Michael, I've noticed you've got a 98 Volvo Packer with 43,000 miles on it.
oh, no.
That's what the chart says here.
And the mileage quit working at 43.
Well, you know, it don't say that. It just says,
Well,
it says 43,000 in poor condition. And, you know, I was just wondering, according to the specs that's on this paper, you know, how did we have one that old not have it, no miles on it?
oh, you can average 30,000 miles a year on that truck.
Yeah.
Because it's run every day. Now, we used to put the wheel meters on in order to keep hub meters on them, but we wouldn't replace the dash because it's electronic. You got to replace the entire dash, so we wouldn't do that just on a speedometer. And Jeff would put the hub meters on there to keep up with the miles, but we don't even do that anymore.
No.
But you know, Mike, I commend you and the department for what you have to work with. You know, I can remember 20 plus years ago when me and Jeff started, we had trucks that you had to plow snow from behind. They made the snow plows out of wooden boards. Judge, you was probably the man that started all that, you and Wade Justice.
I remember.
And, you know, I can remember them old trucks, and today the men has got some pretty decent equipment to work with compared to what we had years ago. And I know there's things here that needs to be replaced. And, you know, we have a lot to be thankful for. And we have a crew over there at that garage that can fix about anything that happens. You know, if you give them a welder or a part, they can get it going. And we've seen that in the last few days through the snow and breakdowns, and they just line them up out there. And I wish that we had enough money in this budget so we could replace these trucks every year. You know, this last few weeks, Jeff gave us an old S10 that was sitting over there to make a fuel truck out of, and we're using it every day. And, you know, in hard times, we just have to try to buckle down and make it through it, and I think we're doing a pretty good job. And this time of year is crazy season. That's when the taxes come about, and we got to worry with our budget and cuts, and you know, I know it's going to be a tough job this year, but I think we can get through it.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Next up, we'll have the road department, Frank Hatcher.
Well, the magistrates know what sits on their lot. They know how much work that our road crews do for each district. At one time, you know, we had a little surplus money, and we got each road lot like $100,000 just for equipment, vehicles only, to purchase as needed. You know, our equipment's old. Trucks are old. We've been doing pretty good on replacing some of our vehicles and backhoes and stuff, but you can see that it's tough. There'll be a lot of times the trucks might not be on our lot. They might be sitting over the garage. Jeff is covered up mostly with solid waste vehicles. And I understand that solid waste has got to have those trucks. And we can, in my department, I can let mine sit. We've got a few vehicles and other things we can do. But Jeff's short-handed. Mike's trucks are in terrible shape. Going out through the county as much as I do, I even talk to Mike's crews. maintenance garage, all my crews, you know, their number one concern is there going to be any layoffs next year. I said, you know, I can't answer that question. I don't know with the way the coal business is going, the gas prices of natural gas, coal severance money, what I hear and see for the next few years in the future, you know, it's kind of looking bad. They asked me about the insurance. We're going to have to take more cuts on our insurance. I said, you know, I don't know that. It's going to depend on finances, what the court sees needs to be done to have a balanced budget. It's tough, and we're doing, as far as I'm concerned, my road crew's doing about as good as anybody. I've got some good men out there, responsible men, and if it wasn't for them, my job would be 10 times harder.
Let me ask. Judge, if I may, Jeff, I know you have one diesel engine mechanic position over there. We've not filled it in order to save money.
That's correct.
Are there other positions that I'm not aware of that we've not filled?
The one in the parts room,
Okay.
when JJ took the position.
Yeah, right. That was some time ago.
Right.
Then we had a part-time mechanic, that we laid him off, I think, as a cost-saving measure.
Well, they had one that retired, and we never filled that position there, and then we got one off that's injured. We've got somebody working in his position.
Yeah. Personnel-wise, though, how are you situated over there?
I mean, I could use 2 or 3 more, and we'd have plenty of work for them to do, you know.
Well, I can understand that. As this equipment ages, gets more and more mileage on it, they're going to visit you more and more. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, next up we have Damus Ramey with Public Works.
Biggest issue in my department right now will be transportation for the men. The vehicles we have, like everybody else's, has got way too many miles on them, wore out. Some of them really aren't fit to be on the road. But that's the biggest thing in our department right now as far as vehicles. We're short men, of course. We've had some through the years that had to be laid off and they've not been hired back. Seasonals have to come back on this year. Right now, we don't have any vehicles to get them out to the job sites to do the mowing. Unless we get some vehicles, I don't know how we'll get them onto the job sites. They're wore out. They're not worth being on the road.
Would you address your vehicles to haul the materials out?
You talking about for the mowing crew?
I'm talking about any materials you may need to haul it out. You talked about a trailer before?
Yeah, we have trailers that actually they haul the mowers, the weed eaters, leaf blowers and such on when they go out to mow grass and such. As far as vehicles for the construction crews, we either have it delivered or we haul what we can on the vehicles we have. Construction crew really doesn't have a pickup for anything like that.
Davis, how many new vehicles did we buy your group there last year? Didn't we buy all new vans for them?
You bought all new vans except for the one for the 2002 Ford van. It's still in use.
So what, we buy 3 or 4?
1, 2, 3, 4. About 4.
4 new vans. How many employees you got?
Got 5, 6, 7. Got 8 total.
8 employees and got 4 new vans. Yeah. Could we look at getting some used vehicles like we have been in the past for them to ride out to mow grass and things, and that would eliminate your problem on that?
As long as they will pull the trailers, yeah. I mean, you just can't buy a light-duty truck and haul those big mowers and such with.
I know in the past we've had some new drivers, and they've, talking to Jeff, they've had some bad luck hauling trailers and banging them up and tearing them up. And, I just can't see us buying a new vehicle and putting a new driver in it and letting them tear the sides out of it.
Hey, Magistrate Dotson, on those vans, their carpenters actually have pretty good equipment to work with. It's the mowing crews that our seasonal workers are dealing, and they don't need new vehicles. But they need something that they can get from the garage to Elkhorn City or to Furls Creek or wherever to get back in. They use that old that little S10 truck that you've got for quite a while, and of course, you've usually got 3 men to a crew, and 3 won't really fit in that S10. Is one problem they have, and they don't need new vehicles, but they need something that's safe and adequate to get them up and down the road.
Reliable.
Bob, wouldn't you say that we've been having some good luck with our state vehicles we've been purchasing down there
We have
you know,
been.
they've got crew cabs down there, trucks that are in good shape, and you and Frank, you know, have been lucky to find some good ones, and we've been using some of them.
I think the states ran out of their decent ones, Hillman, from going down, and the last ones I looked at were pretty rough, the ones we looked at, and their mileage was already way up there in the 140s and 150s, and when the state gets 150,000 miles on one, it's actually done about all it's going to do. But we have been real lucky. That S10 that you've got, I think we paid $900 for it, and it's got handed down. It's like my cars and my kids. It's been handed down through 2 or 3 people in departments.
And the boys is tickled with it now. It does what they need. They put a fuel tank in it, and they're hauling fuel to the equipment, and it's cheap on gas, and it runs good, and, you know, things like that in hard times is what I think we need to look at, trying to eliminate going out and giving $30,000 or $40,000 for a new vehicle when we can use it on our equipment that Mike just said, our packers and all that stuff.
Maybe the jailer can let us have one ahead, and you got about 4 or 5 sitting out there, and you use one of them, he might let us have one of them to haul our equipment in and stuff. There are about 4 or 5 sitting out there, he might let us have one of them.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They got plenty of...
Damus?
Go ahead, Damus.
One other thing, Judge, is Marley Coleman. He is the guy who actually services and works on our weed eaters, mowers, leaf blowers and stuff for the parks. He's had a mini stroke, and he's off, and we have no one now to service those.
Won't be back till.
Judge
No,
Hayes,
he's
would
gonna be off
you
at
work
least
with
3
him
months.
to see if you can get somebody in that position, because he won't be back for 90 days, I think it is, and the weather's going to be opening up, and we need somebody that can do work in regard to the mowers.
Judge, I'd be happy to do that, and I would ask any member of this court or any of the commissioners, directors, staff, if they know of anyone who's good with small engines that may be looking for some employment, to let me know.
Damus, I'd just like to say this. You said that some of our vehicles are not fit to be on the road. Well, if we have something that's not fit to be on the road, you need to pull it off the road. And that goes for Jeff. I mean, you see these vehicles come through, you know, the safety of our employees is a primary concern.
That's number
and if you
one.
see something that's not fit to be on the road, you need to pull it off the road, and we'll make other arrangements somehow to deal with it. But if you got something that's not fit to be on the road, all of you make sure that it's not on the road.
I concur with that.
Okay. Next up, we have Terry Rogers to discuss the courthouse renewals and repairs.
Well, the worst thing we have is our heating and cooling. I think we discussed this chiller once before in this building, and as right now it's down today. It's not working. You feel this cool air. This cool air is results of what they call free cooling. We transferred some switches downstairs, some valves, and we made this happen. Last week, I think Rondo about roasted up there one day until I got this done. These guys have made some proposals here. Same ones I used before that repaired that chiller for them. Most people ask about 120-some thousand. They done it for about 4,000, and that's 5 or 6 years ago. We've got by this far. Right now, I got some parts ordered for this chiller. I'm down probably 12 hours in labor from this Simcoe guys that does the work for me. Probably 50% chance it's going to work for a while, but how long, I don't know. They proposed a new chiller here, I think, for about $138,000. Or they'll repair that one down there for about $50,000. Put a new compressor in it, but no guarantees. They put this new compressor in for $50,000. Something goes bad with the coils in it. It puts water in it. It's gone. Now, they'll come down there and do what they call an eddy current on that chiller. They'll survey the inside of it, see how bad the tubes are, then they'll make an estimate on whether to rebuild it or replace it. And you're looking at pretty good money. And without that chiller, when it gets hotter than it is out right now, we need it. For about $9,000, I can keep this building going with the temperature outside as cool as it is right now. Now, mind you, there's some hot spots in the building, such as the PVA, the office down there. It's going to need a little bit more. Now, the other thing is the Hall of Justice building. We have a hot water heater over there that some days I'm 3 days without hot water on our inmates. That's for their jail, and you got about 350 inmates average. And that's without a backup unit. We need a backup hot water heater over there. It's about $38,000. They'll come over and install that gas fire. This will go right in beside the other one. Then you've got one's down, the other one works. That's the hot water. Now, as far as the heating the building, we have a boiler over there that's an '89 model. It's an old Sellers boiler. I had two of them over there. One was a hot water heater and the other one was a boiler. Well, the hot water heater had been gone about 7 years. It's eat up and gone. We replaced it with a lock and bar hot water heater. That boiler is about $61,000. They'll come in and put an inline boiler in. As we speak now, that thing has a three-way mixing valve over top of the boiler over there. They want about $10,000 just to change that. And once you change that, and then the other part of it goes down, then you're back to square one. But the main thing is the heating and the cooling, and we got to have it. Especially the hot water in the JOM and the cooling in here. The cooling over there is pretty good. You know, I keep it going pretty good. But right now, as I'm saying, I'm down in here, no chiller. We're going to try to repair it, and if it works, we'll see how long it lasts. That's the main thing. The heating and cooling, and and the pumps and air handlers that go with it.
Terry, we need to keep hot water in there for the inmates. You know, they're in jail, but they're still, they like we are, and they're somebody's son or daughter or brother or sister or mother or dad. And nobody should have to bath in cold water. I agree with you.
And that, the hot water heater we have over there is what you call a locking bar. It heats 600 gallons of hot water just in a few minutes. But when that goes down, I've got to try to get parts out of Louisville. And figuring out what's wrong with it. It's all made up of computer components and things that boards that it takes a lot of work and a lot of fixing. And I've just about replaced every part in that thing once or twice. And without a backup unit that I can just turn that off till I get it fixed and turn another one on, it's pretty hard to keep it going. And Rodney knows I've been over. I've worked days and days trying to keep that thing going, and the boys be without hot water. Even in the kitchen where they cook, they don't have hot water. They have to boil water to do the dishes with, and it's something that we really need.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Next, we have Doug Tackett with Emergency Management Department.
I've got two vehicles that are 9 years old. They both have over 150,000 miles on them. They're basically heavy-duty vehicles that we use to tow trailers for response and disasters and other things. We've got 18 trailers total that we use in our work. In addition to maintaining 5 tower sites and 24 repeaters for emergency services around the county. We also have 2 GPS base stations at mountaintops that we maintain for our GIS mapping program. All of the maintenance on these systems are done primarily by myself and CJ, and we also maintain an in-house radio shop that operates to take care of 200 mobiles and about 600 portable radios for fire departments out there. I have a total of 4 employees in the office, 5 counting myself, and everybody does double duty right now. We did lose Nee last year in the layoffs, and we had delegated a lot of work to him, but a lot of that's come back, and we've spread that back around. If we were to face a layoff and lose anybody, if a disaster were to occur, it'd just about cripple us in what we have to do upstairs. We also get some reimbursement from state and federal agencies and emergency management performance grants, and there's a lot of paperwork that has to be done to maintain that level of funding, which really isn't all that much. It's about $35,000 a year what we get, and it helps offset some of our costs and some of our salaries. The 2 vehicles is our primary need right now. We use those, like I said, to service tower sites, and sometimes in foul weather we have to winch our way to tower sites, so we have to set those up with winches, and they've got to be heavy-duty vehicles. Yes, go ahead.
Tell my magistrates about the radio system on the solid waste.
Just getting ready to do that. They're radio systems for the road department and solid waste. The mobiles are okay, but they're repeaters. They have 4, 2 apiece. Those repeaters are probably 30 years old. They have to be capable of being narrowband by January the 1st, 2013. And those 4 repeaters have to be replaced by then, or they'll have to be shut off under FCC rules. So the replacement costs on those 4 would be about $25,000 total, roughly. Give or take a little bit to replace them, get them into specs where they need to be.
I believe they're about shut off right now, according to the way the communications is out there. I was out there last Saturday with them trying to plow snow, and we couldn't talk to one another.
Yeah. Power was off at both Flatwoods and Phelps Tower sites. We had the generators running, but CJ was over there yesterday, I believe, at both sites checking them. One of the biggest problems, Hillman, you guys have with the road department and solid waste radios is those repeaters are probably 30 years old. They're about wore out. They've done what they come to do. But and I want to touch a little bit too on the services that the county provides for the fire departments. I'm sure y'all know pretty much what they do. Provide insurance for their trucks and their buildings. They also provide incentive money for their ISO ratings, which our departments have an average ISO rating, or it's a fire suppression rating capability of about 6 to 7 right now around the county, and that's pretty low considering rural volunteer fire departments. They've done an excellent job in getting those down, so people's homeowners insurance is more affordable than it has been in quite some time. Also, the county has built most of the fire stations that are out there. We, through 911, have provided the departments with most of their pagers and radios over the years. We've done that through grant programs. But even with grant programs, where we've got a lot of the stuff that we have, we still have to maintain it once we do get it. We've spent, through grant monies, probably in the neighborhood of $300,000 installing and putting this new radio system in that they've got now. And it's 12 years old at this time, so down the road there's going to be maintenance as it gets older. If you have any questions, that's about all I've got.
Okay, moving along, we have Carol Napier with the Community Services.
Now, before you go to Carl, please, you're going to have to move your offices.
Okay, yeah.
You need to address your need for moving your offices from the limited space you have into the other building, which hasn't been decided yet, but it's been talked about, been looked at, and to give you adequate room to train. And there have been meetings held in regard to using part of that facility over there in the future for your agency, since your agency is so important and since we are disaster prone.
Yeah, we've, Judge, I've been here 17 years, and I've done, I think, 14 federally declared disasters in my 17 years. The spaces we have when we do have a disaster, we're really cramped up there right now with the number of people that come in to do the work. And to move to the area we've talked about, I know there's got to be some remodeling. We've got to move our network and our computers and our systems over there, plus all of our communication systems. I'm not exactly sure what a total dollar would be to do the remodeling and move all that, but it's going to be fairly expensive, I'm sure.
Where are you moving to, Doug?
Hopefully, is it the courtroom over there? It's,
Hopefully, we're looking at the
fourth
courtroom
floor.
where we have someplace to teach us, to give training to the firemen and training to the emergency workers, the volunteer workers and so forth.
One of those courtrooms, I think the bigger courtroom in the fourth floor.
One of the
over there.
courtrooms is what they've been looking at.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Carol.
Okay. You'll see before you is a Excel sheet that shows the cuts that's been made to the senior program this year, and you note that on the total income was less, this year was $35,799 shortfall than the previous year. And what that equated to was that we had to look at staff reductions. You'll note there the staff reductions that we made to each of our 8 centers, as well as the operation hours. It's really put our senior program in a bind, as you can see. What we're having to do in order to try to come up with the differences in that is that we're doing cookbook sales as well as selling advertisement with magnetic signs to various businesses to try to come up with additional monies that we lost as a result of the Title III funding being reduced. We have looked outside sources for grants. You know, we were successful in getting some grants to be able to purchase vehicles with. As with the other departments, we're seeing aging vehicles as well, with our vehicles being on the road every day. I would point out to the court that since I've been in this position that we haven't been able to give any raises to our employees, and it's been a little over 5 years. In fact, this year, as a result of the Title III reduction plus the increase in food costs, fluctuation in gas, as a result, we lost an employee in my office. I did have 2 employees, and now I'm down to 1 employee, which at times leaves me in a situation where that I have to, you know, be able to answer the phone, whatever that it takes that necessary to run my office, as well as to run the community-based services office. We serve right now, as you'll see on that chart, 13.8% of our senior population in Pike County. But you'll note that our population in Pike County, those individuals that's over 60 years old, is 43% of our population. So you see pockets of areas out here in our county that we're unable to serve just because of the fact that we don't have the money. So, you know, as with the other departments, you know, we're all making the best of the situation that we're in. The unfortunate part is that when, and you as court members know this, when you had to do the layoff, it's a tough decision when it comes to that. But unfortunately, if you got a certain amount of monies, you have to learn to live within your means. And so we had to make those reductions as well as the reduced hours of operation.
Carl, I have a question. Has the fiscal court cut your funding for this past year?
No, sir. The only cuts that we received in our fundings was the Title III funds were cut, and that comes down through the federal. And we do appreciate the fact that this court hasn't. It's always been real supportive of our senior program. And in fact, Master Dotson, if we didn't receive the monies that you all are so generous to give to us, there would be no way that we could operate. And we're thankful, too, for the state funds that's mentioned there, and the state funds that we're referring to as the co-severance dollars that we get, which is $50,000. So it was the Title III coupled with, we've always been in a position in order to make our budget balanced that we had to do a certain amount of fundraising. Of course, in light of the economy as it is, it's been very difficult to do that. This year, you know, we've always in the past been able to raise money even to have a Christmas party, but what we chose to do instead was to take the money that we raised, that we normally go to that, to apply toward our budget, because we just didn't see, you know, being in a position to have a party when we were looking at, you know, reducing staff and reducing hours of operation. So, as I said, Mr. Dotson, we do appreciate this court. It's always been very supportive of our program, and we do appreciate the monies that we get through co-severance, but it's just been really difficult because, as you know, with the fluctuation of gas prices and then the potential of those even increasing this spring, with our folks being on the road every day, you know, picking up seniors as well as delivering, it's been really tough. And we, of course, travel the same terrain as all the others, you know, and we're seeing our vehicles, aged. What we do is when we get grants, we try to make that money go as far as we can by looking to get vehicles, good used vehicles. And it remains to be seen, what our funding situation will be this coming. I'm told that we're looking probably at an 8% cut again. To be honest with you, I don't know how much farther we can go in cutting. Like I said, we took our 5-day centers down to 4. Even if you go down to 3, my biggest concern, Mr. Dotson, is those individuals on home delivery. That's where my heart goes out to those folks. And that's not to say that those that come in the center, they enjoy that too. It's a means for them to be able to get out and socialize. It makes such a big difference in their lives. I just pray that doesn't happen. But that's sort of the situation that we're in.
But Carl, y'all do a good job, and we've been able to add another senior citizen center in the Kemper area in the last few years. That's a plus for the people in that area. But we, as a court and the judge, chose not to cut the senior citizen programs last year. So when we went to the swimming pools and things that wasn't a necessity, we kept our priorities right on our senior citizens. And I just wanted to clarify everything, that your cuts and your reductions wasn't any fault of this court, because we, I think, gave you the same money that we always did, didn't we, to fund your programs, and the cuts came from somewhere other than this court.
That's correct, Master Dotson. The cuts came down through the federal, it's through Title III funding. And you're correct in that we were, since I've been in this position, we were able to offer services in the Kemper area, but also we were able to extend services over into the Stone area as well. And what that equates to us as program, and it was good that we were able to do that at the time, because, see, that determines our funding. So the more people that we serve is the more funds that we receive. So any way in which we can increase those, we want to do that, because that equates to more Title III monies, as well as NSIP reimbursement. The NSIP funds is reimbursement, although a small amount, that we get on the meals that we provide to the seniors. So, but yes, I do want to make sure that everyone understands, and those that are in a viewing audience of Pike TV, that it wasn't a cut, by this Pike County Fiscal Court. We do appreciate what this court has given us. And as I said, the co-severance money we get, unfortunately, it came down through Title III fundings, which is at the federal level, coupled with the, not being able to raise the funds that we normally have in the past, just because of the economy as it is.
I'm trying to do up there at that Chevy Valley senior citizens thing. The roof is real bad on it, and me and Damon's been working on it. I'm trying to get the money to put a new roof on it up there.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Mr. Johnson. In fact, I just got a call right before this meeting from our center director. They're also having issues with the heating and cooling. My understanding that system's been in there a number of years. Alfred was out yesterday. He's looking at trying to get some parts. He's hopeful that that'll remedy the problem, but we're not really sure. So I did tell our center director that I would bring that to the court's attention. So I appreciate
the
you
grant I'm
pointing
trying to
that
get might have enough left there to put the roof on it to have something to work on the heat with. We don't really know yet.
Yeah, and I might add, and I've said this in past when I've addressed the court, that of all the counties in the state of Kentucky, I would have, and I serve as the chairman of the Agent Advisory Council at Big Sandy Ad. I'm familiar with our neighboring counties, but I would like to point out that this court is the most generous of all the counties that I've come in contact with what they do for our senior program. And so again, I thank each of you for that. And like I said, I don't know what we would do if it wasn't for support of this court.
Thank you, Carol. Next up, we'll have Charles Carlton to discuss the coal and natural gas industry's outlook.
Starting with the natural gas industry, what you see on your screen is the spot price based upon Henry Hub, which is a point in Louisiana, Generally, prices are about 75 cents higher here and are on the Appalachian Index, and that's due to the transportation differential, but natural gas is priced at Henry Hub and with just adjustments for transportation at points in between. What this data shows is taking for the last 4 years, 4 years ago, in February of 2008, the spot price at Henry Hub was $8.54. The tax value to Pike County on a million BTUs, 4.5% mineral tax, was about 38 cents per decatherm sold. It peaked in June of 2008, and prices have steadily declined since then. Last month, prices were $2.67 at Henry Hub, which is 31% of where it was in February of 2008. To this morning, gas prices were $2.63, a slight decline. Next slide. What has happened on natural gas is that there have been advent of a new technology of horizontal drilling, and we've had such a flood of natural gas in areas to the north of us in the Marcellus Shale that it's become almost uneconomical to drill in this area till prices recover. And for that price recovery to occur in natural gas, it will take more demand. What you're seeing on the screen right now is that there is a change in coal demand. Taken from all the coal used in the United States, the peak year was 2005 with 1,041,000,000 tons of coal. For this coming through for the year 2010, the projected number, because December is not available yet, and I base it upon 11 months divided into the total for 11 multiplied by 12, would be the year should finish out about 937,000 tons. Coal demand in the United States has declined from that period by about 108 million tons, almost 109 million tons, or 10% of the demand for coal in the United States is down over that period of time. That's the electric utility drop. Just looking at electric utilities only is even more dramatic, but to some extent the newspapers have missed it in that the independent power producers have picked up some of that tonnage and are a significant force in the market. We also have a situation where there's substitution occurring in that natural gas is being substituted for coal, and so we have a transfer in sourcing, and I'm going to discuss that in a moment. Next slide. This is a slide showing from the United States Energy Information Agency, and you can see that the price of coal was a peak at about July of 2008, the same period as the peak of natural gas, about $143 a ton for 12,000 BTU coal for Central Appalachia coal. Recent pricing on the NYMEX exchange for the same coal for 12,000 BTU delivered to the Big Sandy River, $59.75. Coal has not declined as much as natural gas because there's been no change in the technology of mining and there's nothing to drive it lower. Pike County produces more coal than any county in Kentucky and produces 53% of all the natural gas in the state. And while there have been substantial layoffs in surrounding counties in the mining industry, we have been largely spared to date, and this may continue for some period of time with reductions in tonnage and reductions in price. The part of what is occurring is that the United States Environmental and Protection Agency has imposed a restriction on Kentucky coal producers by restricting the issuance of new mountaintop mining permits, by the imposition of new standards affecting the burning of coal and requiring the construction of enhanced emission control facilities at coal-fired plants. Another thing that has hurt coal is that the United States government guarantee programs for rural electric power development will not guarantee the development of coal-fired electric power plants in the United States. A recent plant to serve portions of eastern Kentucky under development by East Kentucky Power Co-op had to be canceled in part because of this financial reasoning of being unable to have a guarantee of loan. Now, many of the coal-fired electrical generating plants in the United States are over 50 years of age, and it's not cost-effective to install emission control facilities at these aging plants, given particularly that electrical demand is substantially reduced in the United States due to decreased industrial production and, to a lesser extent, enhanced electrical efficiency and conservation programs. What we do have is that there's a substantial amount of excess natural gas available, and lowered natural gas prices are depressing coal prices. A natural gas price of $2.60 per 1,000 cubic feet, or 1 million BTU, which is the same thing, equals on a BTU basis a coal price of $65 for 12,000 BTU coal. And what I'm saying to you is that natural gas is below that price. It's cheaper for electrical utilities at these prices to replace coal with natural gas, given that construction costs for a new natural gas electric generating plant are approximately 20% that of a comparable coal-fired baseload plant. The other item I want to mention to the court, that, as for example, in the fourth quarter report, earnings report for Arch Coal, I want to quote, "Internal estimates suggest that a significant portion of Central Appalachia's estimated 125 million tons of thermal coal production is uneconomic at current index price levels." One thing that is external to the United States economy that is decreasing coal prices is that there is a substantial decrease in demand from China and to a lesser degree from India for metallurgical coal. And as a result of this decreased demand in the export market, high-quality metallurgical coal in states such as West Virginia is being diverted onto the steam coal market, and what you have is a cascading effect that as higher quality coals come onto the market at lower prices, they tend to drive out lower quality coals off the market. In conclusion, what I want to point out to the court is that there are reasons to expect that in the near term that there may be decreases in severance tax for coal and for mineral receipts for natural gas, and that till we get a substantial change in energy policy, these conditions may persist for some time. Thank you all very much.
Mr. Carlton, I read the paper, not this Saturday, but Saturday before last, and Brandon, I asked you to put that up on here. It was a coal use dropped to lowest point in 20 years. So that was in the paper on Saturday before last, and that pretty well tells the story. And I think we can expect, we've had 5.8 million deductions since 2005 in regard to the severance tax, and it's not plummeted down like I think it will, because there's a lot of permits out on mountaintop development, as we call it, and other type of mining that EPA is just about put an end to, and there are a lot of permits still out and still working. In a year or two, as they mine out where they're operating now on those permits, there'll be no place to move them to because of the issuance of new permits.
Okay. It's important to note, as I know this court is well aware, is that a major source of funding for the county comes through coal and mineral severance tax. And given that report, and it looks like if our revenue goes down, we could be into some budget issues that could really affect the county. And I've talked with all the commissioner and directors here for their budget needs, and just to kind of give you a round number of what they're saying their needs are, would be approximately $3.4 million. And that would include the additional debt service that we would have to include in this year's budget, because part of the debt service was already included in the current budget we're in. So that would just be the landfill if we do not receive funding through coal severance tax. So in looking at that, just to kind of put some options up here, if we do have a shortfall with the budget, and of course these are things that we incorporated in this year's budget along with some other things that have been discussed. First off would be another round of employee layoffs. And as Judge Hayes talked, that would possibly affect some departments in a very negative way. Another cut in health insurance benefits, and we don't want to see that. This would be the third budget year that no longevity pay increase has been given to our employees. And given the situation, I don't think that we would be able to do we would not be able to incorporate a longevity pay increase or a cost of living pay increase, because there just wouldn't be additional funds. Another option we've talked about is furlough days, decreased road maintenance, and that would be due to the fact that we talked earlier about that we had to decrease the road funds by $600,000. However, we were able to maintain the same level of funding due to coal severance money. Therefore, if coal severance is down and we don't get additional funding, then the level of funding cannot be increased. It would have to stay the same, which would be a decrease of $600,000. Interruption and decrease in trash collection. And you would have to look at if you have decrease in service or increase in bills or a combination of both. Closing, of course, some of the golf course, keep the pools closed as we had last year, parks, community centers, and just an overall cut in operating expenses as we had to do in order to get into this budget. Roland Case.
Well, if anyone is easily offended, I'm about to say a dirty word, and you might want to cover your ears. Taxes. I could call them alternate revenue sources. I could call them fees. But as the old saying goes, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. So I can call these whatever you want me to call them, but they're still taxes. And basically, there's two taxes available for this court to enact if they so desire. The first one is an occupational tax. Sometimes it's called a fee, but when you get right down to it, it's a tax. This was proposed or floated last time before the budget. Unfortunately, our local Chamber of Commerce came out adamantly against same for some invalid reason, and it was kind of ironic, or to me it was almost comical, that they were so adamant in their opposition to the county adopting an occupational tax when the ordinance which was proposed to this court was almost word for word the same as the one the city of Pikeville has, but at 2% rather than 1%. And unfortunately, the Chamber of Commerce and our local media chose to pick on one part of the ordinance as being unfair when the city of Pikeville has the exact same language in their ordinance. I'm still waiting for the chamber to go to the city and ask them to repeal their occupational tax, but I don't think that's going to happen. But anyway, basically, an occupational tax is what it is. It's based upon it's based upon a percentage, which 1% is the maximum which the county could adopt of an employee's earnings. There's also a tax on business earnings, and the purpose of that is so that, for example, a doctor who practices in the county, it would capture his income and put a tax on it, just like his secretary and nurses and office staff would have to pay a tax. So that was the purpose of that section that the Chamber of Commerce found so offensive that But the city, as I said, the city of Pikeville has the same provision, and in fact, when I was preparing the ordinance, virtually every county and city, they obviously were prepared from the same model because they're almost word for word in every county and city. The second alternative...
Hold on, before you move to that, how many counties and how many cities had the payroll tax? Do we got that figure?
We had that at one time. I do not have it off the top of my head.
I don't remember what it was. I don't remember what it was. We did have that at one time. It's a considerable amount. Yeah, I'm thinking like 70.
Jeannie, would you get the microphone over there and give it to us, the cities and the counties that has the tax?
74 counties and 140 cities. That's what we looked at last summer. I think that's correct.
Go right ahead, Mr. County Attorney.
The other option is a insurance premium tax. We are allowed by KRS 91A.080 to adopt a insurance premium tax or fee. This tax, in order to use it in the next fiscal year, would have to be adopted by March 23rd of this year. The statute specifically provides that upon the enactment of the tax, it has to be enacted 100 days prior to the start of the fiscal year in order to go into effect. So, for example, if we adopted it in June, it would not go into effect July 1 of 2012. It would go into effect July of 2013. So this tax would have to be adopted prior to March 23rd of this year. It's already, February the 21st or thereabouts, I'm not for sure. So we would have approximately 2 months to have 2 readings and adopt same if we so desired. I did some preliminary research just to compare some other counties that have this particular tax, and I'll give the basis of why I've selected these counties. On the population, I used what I call the Blue Book. It's a legal directories of attorneys, and they have each county, and they had a population, and I'm not for sure which year's population. This might be the 2000 census population rather than the 2010, but should be reasonably accurate. Bell County had a population of 29,055, had a tax rate of 6%, and thereby raised $655,463.97. Bell County is in eastern Kentucky, as you're aware, and they are a coal-producing county. Hopkins County is in western Kentucky, is again a coal-producing county. Population of 46,338, had a 10% tax rate and raised $2,440,850.21. The county which is most near our population, although I'm not for sure whether they produce coal or not, is Pulaski County, had a population of 60,851, had a tax rate of 5.5%, and raised $2,936,288.22. Pike County, by the book that I used, had a population of 65,331. So by extrapolation from using the Pulaski County data, I would think that if Pike County adopted the same rate as 5.5%, we would be expected to raise somewhere in the $2.7 to $3 million range. Again, that's an extrapolation. It would depend upon the premiums raised in the counties. Our premium rates may be higher or lower. Property values may be higher or lower in Pulaski County, so there's some variables, so it's not an exact extrapolation, but I think it would give the court some reasonable idea of how much would be raised. As far as the pros and cons of a insurance premium tax, and there will be disagreement as to whether these are really pros or not, is the first is that it affects a broad base of payors, in that it would not just be on people who are working, it would be on everyone who has insurance, so it would be a broad base of the citizens. It is a progressive tax in the sense that those individuals who have insurance on a $500,000 house would certainly be paying more than someone that has a $75,000 house. Someone who has a $40,000 vehicle, his insurance premium would be more than someone who has a $5,000 vehicle. So it would be, at least to some extent, a progressive tax. The second advantage is it's easily implemented in that once we pass, if we pass the ordinance, I should say, you would forward it to the Department of Insurance, and it is actually collected by the Department of Insurance on the insurance premiums. Every insurance company that does business in the state of Kentucky has to file a report, so it's actually collected by the Department of Insurance. It would require no new employees because, as I said, it was basically collected by the Department of Insurance. The minus is, the first minus is, regardless of what you call it, it's a tax, and it would affect everyone. So that would be the negative. And the second disadvantage is that it could unduly affect those on fixed incomes because it would be an increase not only on high wage earners but also on some individuals on fixed incomes. On the other hand, it would affect some people who have what I would call passive income and not pay any occupational tax because they derive their revenues from investments. So it would capture some money from those individuals. And the third negative, as opposed to the occupational tax, is it does not raise near as much money as the occupational tax, assuming that would be assuming that the court adopted a 1% occupational tax and a 5.5% insurance premium tax. The occupational tax, based on the numbers that I heard, would probably raise approximately twice as much money as the insurance premium tax. Those are the only two revenue sources that I know of. The only other revenue source which I would throw out, which has been mentioned at least in passing, is if the legislature gave more money for debt service or road maintenance or whatever from the severance tax money, although there's a lot of people trying to get to the same pool of money. So, and the other disadvantage of that source is it would be a source that we would have to look at every 2 years in the budgets. But again, the county attorney's office, we're not specifically taking a position on the implementation of either one of these taxes, but would, just for the education of the court, those would be the two available revenue sources. Again, if the court becomes of the mind, or a member of the court feels that the adoption of the insurance premium tax is indicated or warranted, I would like to have a heads up on it so I could prepare the ordinance. And again, this is something that we would have to do by March 23rd of this year. And the reason I keep emphasizing that date is if we get into budget negotiations in May or June, the insurance premium tax would no longer be an option for adoption in order to try to balance the budget.
Mr. County Attorney, I have the same question on this option. How many counties and how many cities has this tax in the Commonwealth?
Judge, I did not count the cities, I'll be honest with you. The counties, there's 37 counties that have adopted this. The rates varies from one county has a 2% and the high is 10%. I would say the median is somewhere between 5% and 5.5%. Different counties varies. I would mention in passing that this tax is not on health insurance, and as far as business owners, it is not on your workers' compensation premium. That is specifically excluded by statute.
Judge Hayes.
Out of curiosity, does the city of Pikeville, which we know has the occupational tax, does it have an insurance tax also?
It does not. Prestonsburg does, and Whitesburg does.
That being the end of the update and the presentation on our budget, this is the first term that I've served, the second term really. When the downturn in the economy hit, this county no longer had an equipment fund. And this is the first time that I've served that we haven't had it, and there's been no money to have an equipment fund. It's not been there in the budget so that we could do that and continue to provide the services that people in the county expect us to provide. The debt service, we have a commitment only on the debt service at the jail. And that was a past commitment. The treasurer told me that they had that commitment from our legislators. And in my meeting with the legislators, that's the only one we have the commitment on. We don't have it as of yet in regard to the landfill. Solid waste, I think we need to emphasize that the solid waste and the road department's radios will go off the air on that deadline. Now, we knew this, and we had this to propose in the budget, the treasurer, myself, and the finance director. But as we had to cut the last budget, that money didn't get in there. So we have a deadline on regard to our radio system that's certainly important to us. We are blessed that the sheriff's office radios and that the Doug Tackett's program and the fire department's radios meet the new federal guidelines. But our two departments do not. So that is a problem that we have facing it. And I know that our solid waste program, and I discussed with Carl recently of my trip to Frankfurt and found out that the state, the governor, in his budget is cutting 8.6 out of about 80% of the departments in state government, and 6.2% in the rest of them. And I was telling Carl, looks like that she's going to take another cut because, as we know, all federal money comes through the state. And I think I seen the other day is 96% of the federal money comes through the state, and it goes through the office of the governor. So if that's going to be a cut, Carl's going to have to take another cut. As she said, she's had to cut today's down already, even though this court understood the importance of not cutting her budget, the fact that last year that she was going to have to take a hit anyway. And as Magistrate Dotson and others have continued to point out, that the support that this court has given to this program, one of the best in Kentucky, in my opinion, and we give more than any other. I thank you all, the hard work, Jeannie, and the Personnel Director, Judge Hayes, and Rhonda James, and especially our treasurer, who has all these years of experience. And I'm sure that when she returns, that you magistrates I'll be sitting with her and talking about our budget presently and the budget next year. And when the budget time comes, it's going to be again that a proposed budget will have to be recommended to you by myself in the end. The preparation will be with the treasurer and with the finance director. And as you're aware, that it's always been my policy from the get-go to have the magistrates involved from the beginning to the end of a budget, because I'm a member of this court and we have to approve the budget. So I want to thank all the commissioners and directors and to every other county employee that for months, as Bobby Branham stated, he started back in November gathering up his data in regard to the mileage on the vehicles and the hours on the equipment. And many have been working on this for months to make sure that this court, was completely updated on where we stand today and what the outlook is. The outlook is not good because of the economic situation the country in. Seems like it's coming out of it, but as we know, it's going to be a slow process. On the other hand, we are blessed in this county to be a progressive county, this court a progressive court. We have $680 million worth of contracts out in this county. And somebody said the other day, if you'd had a payroll tax with all of these employees coming in to work on all these jobs, look at the money, the windfall of money would be coming to the county to provide the services that we're expected to provide. But I thank you for giving us our current status and giving us a projection of our outlook, and the fact that our county attorney's office has advised us if we desire to have an option of either one of the two proposals, that we have a deadline of March 23rd. So I want to thank everybody involved. Does any of the magistrates have any question for any commissioner, any director? And I'm sure that we will have in the future, I will have, and I will be anxious to spend some time with the treasurer.
Judge, I'd like to say that was a fine presentation. You know, it was a well-needed presentation for this court to look at and observe. And I'd like to thank all these commissioners. I know they have a hard day every day dealing with what they deal with. And, you know, for the last 20 years, we've had budget problems with different things, and we've always been able to work through them. And this equipment is going to always continue to wear out. And, you know, when it gets to where we don't have anything wear out, then we won't have a job. You know, we've got to work on our roads every day. We got things that's going to happen as long as we live. But on the other hand, you know, the tax issue, the insurance tax might not sound like a tax. It's going to the companies, but the companies are not going to pay that tax. They're going to put it on our bills. It's like Roland said. Roland done a good job laying it out there. You know, we are the one that's going to pay the tax in the long run. And I just think that we're taxing ourselves out of things that could happen in this county. Charles, you're doing a fine job. You're involved in more than I thought you were, and you're on top of a lot of things. But reading the papers last week, you know, the county and the city lost a big customer because of taxes, and it went to coal run. And, you know, in the future, we don't want to see our industry not located in the county. And, you know, I was trying to figure out, Judge, why they said the county.
No, they did
and
locate
the city.
They did locate in the county.
In the county, but it's not in the area that we had anticipated.
We couldn't build them a building.
It went into coal run. Is that not correct? And we had anticipated an office over there beside of our new industrial park, and we lost that. And I just don't want to see us lose any more people that wants to locate in the county. You know, they're still in the county, I agree, but the city is going to get the benefits. Is that not right?
Yeah, they do that, but they'll still be in Pike County. We could not amortize the investment, and we could no longer negotiate with them because they went from 20 years down to 5 years and on the lease, and it's impossible. We couldn't build the building, but we're glad they're locating. It is a Fortune 500 company. Let me say this, they're no longer locating folks in Lexington, Louisville, or Charleston, West Virginia. Just imagine that. They're locating right here in Pike County, Kentucky. Same as EQT. Charleston, West Virginia, Lexington, Louisville, they didn't move there. They're here, and that's because of this progressive court we got, progressive county government, and progressive city government we have, as they chose to come to and locate right here. We're changing the way. We're different than all the other counties in eastern Kentucky that produce coal. This county is so far ahead of those other counties, it's unbelievable. $500 million worth of contracts out today in this county. So we got to get back and the magistrate's road work.
I've got one.
Go right ahead.
One thing I wanted to ask is if we keep hearing if there's a shortfall in coal severance, if there's a shortfall, how are we this year on our budgeted revenue? Are we in line? Or are we?
We are within budget.
Okay, so
we're just right even.
Okay, so we are okay this year with our budgeted revenues. It's what we budgeted in our last year's budget.
That is correct.
Yes, which means that that this court, the treasurer, the finance director, that we made our projections and they're holding. Only problem we have is in the past, if you look at the data, the fourth quarter on severance tax has always been down. hopefully that it will be up to a level that we won't have to take a hit. And Magistrate Harris, it looks like we're in good shape in this year's budget. We had a motion on the Magistrate's road work, Magistrate Anderson. I have a second, Magistrate Robinson. Have a roll call vote, please.
Magistrate Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Murphy? Mr. Robinson? Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Judge Rutherford?
Yes. Mr. Stacy, did you have any bids? No bids. Mr. County Attorney, since our treasurer had to be out of town for a medical emergency, you was handling the treasurer's business today for her.
Judge, I'll be glad to do that. Need a motion to authorize any necessary transfers and interfund transfers to pay the bills, payroll, health, and life insurance.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second by Magistrate Johnson. Have a roll call vote, please.
Magistrate Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Magistrate Murphy? Magistrate Robinson? Magistrate Dodson?
Yes.
Magistrate Harris?
Yes.
Judge Rutherford?
Yes.
Need a motion to authorize payment of the expenditure approval list dated February 20th, 2012, and any other utility and telephone bills received before checks are run. And if there's any questions, I'm going to refer.
I've got one question. There's a check on here to the city of Prestonsburg for $17,400. It says reimbursement of grant funds. Just wondering what that was.
Frankie? Mr. Stacy, come around to the mic, please.
We got a recycling grant, and it's a area-wide grant. The city of Prestonsburg, city of Pikeville, Pike County, and McGoffin County were 4 partners in it, and Pike County got all the money for the grant. So as the other counties spend their money, we're reimbursing them based on that grant.
Any other questions? If not, we have a motion and a second. Have a roll call vote, please.
Magistrate Anderson?
Yes.
Magistrate Johnson?
Yes.
Magistrate Murphy? Magistrate Robinson? Magistrate Dodson?
Yes.
Magistrate Harris?
Abstain.
And Judge Rutherford?
Yes.
Need a motion to authorize a check when NRCS funds are received to Walker Appraisals in the amount of $1,200 for technical review of appraisal report for Gary Thacker property.
Is that pass-through money, Jeannie? Pass-through money? To have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Magistrate Dodson. Have a second by Magistrate Murphy. Have a roll call vote, please.
Magistrate Anderson?
Yes.
Magistrate Johnson?
Yes.
Magistrate Murphy? Magistrate Robinson? Magistrate Dodson? Magistrate Harris?
Yes.
Judge Rutherford?
Yes. Motion carried. Mr. County Attorney.
That concludes the treasurer's business.
We now have Magistrate's comments. Magistrate Anderson.
Judge, I would just kind of rehash what Hillman said. I'd like to thank all the commissioners for their hard work. It's obvious they've put a lot of time and effort into putting these figures and all these statistics together, and I know it couldn't have been an easy task just by looking at it. On the issue of the severance tax, I've been reading, as I'm sure everybody has, about the Pike situation, and I've always wondered why we couldn't get all of our co-severance tax back. And I know the legislators don't have the votes to do it, but I think it's a shame that we even have to consider putting a tax on the people of this county in some shape or form when we can't even get the money back into this county that leaves here and goes to Frankfurt. And I understand it's a state tax, but it's a tax on coal-producing counties. And I've always, I have never fully understood why we can't get that money back that has come out of Pike County, and it would eliminate so many problems and so many, the troubles that we have here in the county if we could get 100% of the money back. And I know we don't even get the true 50% back, because I know since I've been a magistrate, we've always, we've always got shortchanged, and I think it's a shame that we're kind of looked down upon in this county and kind of frowned upon at times. But I think that I don't know if it'll ever happen, but I think that we deserve to get all the money back, and I think that it's a shame that we're having to look at other ways to generate additional revenues when
when we send so much money down to Frankfurt?
Magistrate Anderson, we pay in 32% of the severance tax that goes in to the state. It is a state tax. When I proposed the severance tax back in the 70s, and I'm the fellow that the first person in Kentucky that ever proposed a severance tax, and had to tell them how you severed coal from the seams of coal, and how you tax it. And I said when I appeared before that joint committee of the House and Senate that we wanted to live like the other people in Kentucky lived, to have good schools, good transportation, a good infrastructure, sewer, water that everybody else had. They stole the future of my children, Magistrate Anderson, and my grandchildren, and everybody else's up here, and they left us with, I said, pneumoconiosis, black lung, and holes in our mountain. And then when they took the money, they did make it a state tax, and then they took it and put it in the state budget. And listen to this. Judge Patton and I, or Governor Patton and I was talking the other day. They've been, since that, in the 70s, they've been billions and billions and billions of dollars that's gone into the state coffers from coal mine on the back of coal miners and coal operators from Pike County, especially because we're the #1 producer of coal. And Magistrate Anderson's right. We sit up here and talk about revenue and I told the governor on the telephone 2 weeks ago, I said, Governor, if we'd got the tax back to Pike County, we'd be bailing you all out. Down at Frankfurt, with all the problems you got today, we would have been granting you money or loaning you money, and here we have to have this conversation during an update of our budget. Anybody else have any comment?
That's all I have, Judge.
Magistrate comments. Next is Magistrate Johnson.
I want to thank y'all for coming here, and look like one out there pulled his hair out. He's worked so hard, and I think Frank might get gray-headed. But I think what we should do, we should bring Keith Hall up to the microphone and let him tell us how to solve his problems.
Did you hear that, Mr. County Attorney? Magistrate Burton.
No, I've always said, just like Jeff said a while ago, Pike County could get just 50% of back what coal severance tax money is sent to Frankfurt. We wouldn't have to worry about nothing. I mean, no doubt about it. In the 10-year I've been, I believe 12% has been the biggest we've got back. But we do get shortchanged, and when you get to think about it, you can get highly mad over it, and I do. But if we could only get 50% back, this county wouldn't have to worry about taxes of any kind. But two, I'd like to comment on all the commissioners. Everybody's doing a good job, and especially that the maintenance department. It's overwhelming, I think, of the vehicles and things we've got for them to repair, and I think they do a great job at it. Thank you.
Magistrate Dotson.
Judge, I hate to keep running my mouth, but I feel like, that sometimes it's better to get it out than it is to hold it in. And, I want to say that we as a court and as these commissioners have worked together with your help, and we went through a tough year last year. And we've took some bad hits, and like Rhonda said, we're on target, pretty close to what we need to be. And let's just hope and pray that our coal severance will be up enough to where we won't have to go through what we did last year. And things are, I believe, are looking better, and we will just have to tackle it as it comes along and try to work together and make it better. And I feel like if we all continue to work together and try to solve some of these problems, that it'll all work out in the end. We have probably seen some tougher times than what we are right now. But, I just want to thank this court and our employees. Without them, we couldn't get the job done. And they braved some pretty bad weather. Our solid waste trucks, our drivers, we don't think sometimes to tell them how much we do appreciate them, Mike, because, they're out and it's snow and rain, and they're working in some pretty tough climate conditions, and they work hard. And sometimes we just forget to thank them. In our road department, you know, if it wasn't for them, nobody could get around. And I know they have some tough equipment to work with too. But I just want to thank everybody that's a part of this, and I hope and pray that we'll have a better year. You know, we just need to stay together, and I think it'll work out. And that's all I have.
Magistrate Harris.
Thank you, Judge. I had a kind of odd thing happen to me this week. I called the Big Sandy ad and asked them for some assistance in applying for a grant for our Tug River Trail system. And they were very tight-lipped, but I got a response from them that said that they had a new policy at the Big Sandy ad, and that they attended every fiscal court meeting in their service area. They attended every city council meeting and most utility meetings in their service area, but they were no longer going to be attending Pike County's meetings. And when I asked them about that, they were very not forthcoming with information, but they did send me a letter, an email. They responded to my request by email, and it says, this is from Denise Thomas. It says, effective immediately, anyone in our department currently assisting with projects and or applications for Pike County or future projects will need to obtain a letter from Judge Rutherford requesting us to be involved in that project. You can relay this information to anyone from county government who requests our assistance. You will need to keep record of your time, mileage, etc. And Brandon, you will no longer need to attend Pike County Fiscal Court meetings.
The executive board and the board decided that every county would have to have they would provide a form, and it'd have to be signed. That was a decision of the board. Every county. They do not attend all of the fiscal court meetings in the 5 counties. They attend some of those meetings on request, and will continue to do that at this county. When they're requested, they will come and attend the court meeting and make presentation. That has not changed.
Well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Big Sandy Ad is a group that's set up to help county governments find funding, to help us find additional funds. In fact, they just applied for a huge grant. We got $2 million, and they brought in my understanding was they were supposed to be the administrator of that grant, and we're going to be receiving a fee of $75,000 for their work in administering that grant.
Right.
And that your office then told them that they were not going to be administering that grant.
Correct.
And that it was going to be administered by Summit Engineering, who was charging $150,000 to administer.
Overseen by the Pike County, not by the ad district.
Well,
but there are no change in the policy of making any application for anything for Pike County or any other county, period. I'm on the board, Judge Hayes on the board, and the action was taken was not to do anything at all in regard to making an application for anything.
Well, it is a change.
They put a system in where they don't go do it on their own.
Well, it is a big change because we always had the luxury of having the executive director of the Big Sandy Ad here at our meetings. I mean, she came to almost every one of the meetings, and now for us not to even have a representative of Big Sandy Ad to be attending our meetings, you know, we're talking about how we're short of money and we don't have any money, and then the people that we have at our disposal to try to help find us grant money, we're telling them don't come to our meeting unless we ask you to.
I'm like KCO. We got to have KCO. We got to have the ad.
This doesn't have anything to do with KCO. This has to do with the Big Sandy Ad coming to our meetings.
You got to have the Big Sandy Ad to make this government work. You have to have it. This does not take anything away at all from the cooperation that I'm sure that we'll get with Big Sandy Ad and the applications that can be filed for us.
Then why would we not want them to be at every one of our meetings?
That's a decision made of the executive board.
Which you're on.
which I'm on. yes,
Okay,
I'm
so
on
explain
by-
to me what is the benefit to Pike County of not having them at every one of our
They can
meetings?
come anytime they want to, anytime that they're
Well,
requested.
that's not what this says.
You know, anytime.
That's not what the new policy says. The policy says they have to ask you
I
before
haven't
they
got
can
a
come to
copy
the
of
court
what
meeting.
you had from Denise, but if you leave me a copy with it, I'll take it up with Ms. Runyon.
I will do that.
Glad to do that.
And I'd like to know the status of the bill that they left here for us. It was $6,800 for the work that they did.
That bill has been withdrawn. There's no bill.
Okay, so is Big Sandy going to be administering the grant now?
No, so it'll be by Pike County, and you have a letter to the effect that, the reasons.
So is Pike County going to administer it, or is Summit Engineering going to administer
Pike County is going to administer. Summit Engineer, which is our county engineer, will be part of the, not the engineering part of the management part.
it? Okay, will we have to pay them to administer this grant, or help us with the administration of it?
$75,000 will be whatever the federal government allows for that, for what is done in regard to.
So we're
this
paying
grant.
them the same amount that
Federal
we would have paid
guidelines.
Big Sandy Ad?
No. No, the Big Sandy ad, that $6,800 was to prepare an application. So that's not the way it works.
I mean,
I
if
think
Big
it's,
Sandy Ad would have administered the
Was it
grant,
2.5% goes to, I believe it's 2.5%, not 5%, but 2.5. Does anybody have that figure? Was it 2.5? Jeannie, do you know what it was? That's available in the grant, not to prepare the application.
my question is, are we paying Summit the same
The reason
amount
we
that
don't
we're
have to
paying,
pay
that
the
we would have paid Big Sandy to administer the grant?
Let me say this. The $6,800 was a preparation of the grant. When you asked, what if you didn't get the grant, would they have been a bill to us? And the answer was no. So there's no bill. That's null and void, because what if we didn't get it? They wouldn't have been a bill.
But they did the work to apply for the grant.
Jimmy Kaiser did the work.
Jimmy, did Big Sandy assist you in preparing this grant, or did you do it by yourself? Okay, but was the agreement, was the understanding that Big Sandy was going to be the administrator of the grant, or that you were going to be the administrator of the grant?
Mr. Harris, we asked for a copy of a written agreement. There was none existing. I signed no agreement with them. This court took no action to, in regard to the Big Sandy Area Development District.
Okay, and I guess I need to know whether or not we're going to be paying the same amount to Summit that we would have paid to Big Sandy.
No, the $6,800 is a
No,
new issue.
their fee was going to be $75,000 to administer the grant.
Under the FEMA guidelines, we'll have to follow those, whatever percent, and I think it was 2.5% instead of 5. Jimmy, do you remember what was it? That goes to it.
Which is how much? $75,000?
Yes.
Okay, is that what we're going to be paying Summit to administer this?
Ever who puts it together and submits it, they will do their part.
But not any more than the $75,000.
$75,000 is it. That's the budget.
All right, thank you.
Any other question? Judge Hayes, personnel? Do we need a closed meeting, or what have you got?
I hope not. I'm afraid to get everybody in the same room now. But oh, by the way, as we were talking about the budget and so forth, if I can add this, I don't recall hearing anybody mention the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that's the escalating, ridiculously, in my opinion, escalating fuel cost. I just looked at the figures. It may be in the packet, it may not. We've been doing, ever since 5 years ago, we've been attempting to park unnecessary vehicles. Evidently, Bobby done a pretty good job. I see in all use, unleaded regular, unleaded premium, unleaded plus, diesel, and so forth, from 7/1/2010 to 7/1/2011, we've decreased the usage of fuel, yet our fuel bills have gone up significantly during that period of time. And we're looking, the national pundits at least, are talking about $5 a gallon by this summer, and I know that we didn't budget anywhere near that kind of cost. And so it's hard telling what that what
Bobby
that's
Brown?
gonna do to us.
Judge Hayes, one thing we looked at on there, we tried to go back before July of 2010 when we started having more budget issues and things, and we actually dropped some consumption. Biggest thing was in unleaded gas. We dropped it, let's say 800 gallons in a month period. But the problem when we went down 800 gallons from 2010, let's see, we've got July of 2010 and July of 2011, we dropped it 800 gallon, but the cost went up $3,000.
Yeah.
And this was only on unleaded, and we actually use about 20 to 22,000 gallon of diesel per month, and that figure stays pretty consistent due to just what our solid waste trucks do. But as in that same month, our diesel usage went down 2,000 gallons that month, but the cost actually went up $16,000.
Yeah, well, I didn't mean to open up a whole new discussion, but the court's got to keep that in mind as we move toward the summer. If the predictions come true, boy, we're really going to have some problems with our
They're
fuel
predicting $5 a gallon this summer.
What happened, we parked the vehicles and they went down and the price went up.
Consumption went down, but the cost went up, Judge.
Kind of like the
So
sales
it's a good
tax.
thing we slowed
Tax
down
went
on our
the price
driving.
went up.
All right, Judge, we don't need an executive session. We do have one personnel matter that's pretty much cut and dry. The magistrates have that in their packet. We had posted the position of mini packer driver, solid waste area number 1. That's at Johns Creek, a 3H pay rate, and only one employee bid on that job. That was Jeffrey Varney. He is a temporary employee, but he does have his CDLs, and that being the case, Judge, we would recommend that the court hire Jeffrey Varney as that mini packer driver.
That is my recommendation and my motion. Have a second.
Second.
Have a second. Have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson? Mr. Murphy? Mr. Robinson? Mr. Dodson?
Yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Judge Rutherford?
Yes.
Judge, one personnel matter that I want to bring up, it's nothing that we can't talk about out here. Jack Queen, who has been a longtime employee there at Grants Branch, came into my office last week and told me that he was going to retire. And he's been a great employee. He's become a friend to everybody that visits the park. He does his job. He's always reliable, and he even watches out for the park over the winter, and doesn't charge us anything. But he is going to retire, and he brought with him when he came to tell me he was going to retire. He brought with him his nephew, and his nephew. I talked to him. Seemed like a real nice fellow. His name is William, and he filled out an application and wanted to be considered for Jack's job when he retired. So I just wanted to submit
Judge
that to
Hayes,
the court.
would you take that and would give that consideration? And Magistrate Harris is right. And Chick, it reminds us of our friend up to the Longport Park. Mr. Queen went beyond his call of duty to people that come up there and use those facilities and come up and fished. Just a great, caring employee and a dedicated employee.
Judge, I just got one more thing and then I'll quit. I'm glad that John Doug brought up the fuel. That's been on my mind, and I've had some questions asked me from a monitor that lives in Phelps, and she has to drive to Pikeville to work. And when she bid on that job and got it, her work location was in the Phelps Courthouse. So now she has to drive her vehicle to Pikeville every day to work, and it's costing her quite a bit of gas for her vehicle. And I just wonder, is this going to go on in the next year? We have, 4 monitors, Mike? And I guess they all do the same thing. And, it was just one thing that was brought to my attention that, due to the job being changed from where her work location was, I think some of the employees parked their vehicles at the nearest road lot. Is that right, Mike, or did they all bring them to the court? Yeah. But that's one thing I was hoping y'all could look into and see if they can get some relief on that. I know it makes a hard job on on somebody to try to make a payday, and they incur expenses other than what they normally do due to our changing of the policies.
We agreed when we parked the vehicles that they'd all be parked at their workplace, and that's what we've done. With everyone that's been parked, they're all parked at the workplace.
Well, her workplace would be at the Phelps Courthouse.
All of our workplaces here at Pikeville.
She works over there 2 days a week.
2 days a week.
Yeah.
As does the Belfry worker and the lady at
Let's see if we
Belcher
can-
and at Robinson.
We might work it out on those 2 days a week.
When-
We'll talk about it.
When we restructured that, Master
We'll-
Dodson,
might
they were to
restructure
have
that.
county-wide monitoring jurisdiction. They were no longer gonna have one area. That's true for all the monitor.
But in the past, John, you know, I don't know what our contract says. It's something that we've not dealt with in a while. But I think Mike and commissioners that I remember at one time that each person had a work site to report to. And if the court changed their work site, then we would be responsible for their transportation. Is that in the contract that we had in the
Entirely up to
past?
the court.
We will look at
Entirely
the
up to
2
the court.
days and.
I'll work it any way you want it.
Well, you know, it was brought to my
We
attention.
said we'll park them at the work site, and that's what we've been doing.
We'll take a look at the 2 days they're in Pikeville and the 2 days they're in Belfast.
3 days Pikeville, 2
and 2. We'll take a look at those.
that's only 4.
Nothing else, need a motion to adjourn. Got a motion, Merchant Murphy, have a second, have a roll call vote, please.